Hello, my dears. Daniela here, and welcome to another episode of the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. This episode is brought to you by Addo Aesthetics, the #1 coaching company for spa industry professionals wanting to step into the role of spa CEO. And today we are welcoming Dr. Alan Durkin to the show. I invited Dr. Durkin to be a guest after being introduced to him from one of our partners over at Roar Aesthetics. He's got an incredible energy and is deeply passionate about elevating the industry as a whole, something we are very aligned with over here at Addo. Now, I loved sharing his story and also learning about the educational opportunities that MedSpa Network is offering for our industry. I'm excited to share those with you and let you really get to know Dr. Durkin, his story, his energy, his personality. I think you're going to love him. So let me go ahead and read his bio, and then we'll jump into that interview. Dr. Alan Durkin is a board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon and is the founder of Ocean Drive's Plastic Surgery and Med Spa, a concierge beachside medical spa and aesthetic surgery center that combines style and elegance with a state-of-the-art surgical facility. Dr. Durkin is a diplomat of the American Board of Surgery and the American Board of Plastic Surgery. He's been named one of the best doctors in America by Castle Connolly and is one of America's top doctors. He also sits on the medical advisory board for New Beauty magazine and is a nationally recognized expert injector. Dr. Durkin has also been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Martha Stewart Living, the New York Times, Good Housekeeping magazine, Cosmopolitan magazine, New Beauty magazine, Haute MD, and Vice Sports magazine. Wow. These very well-known guys. All right, so Dr. Durkin's passion for training stems from his deep understanding of the current aesthetics industry and what its future holds. With over 13,000 new jobs being created each year in the United States market alone, Dr. Durkin's passion for comprehensive and safe trainings has never been more important. His goal is to always meet trainees where they are and allow them to leave with a deeper understanding of aesthetic topics, as well as a greater confidence in their abilities. Participants bringing that knowledge back into their communities, practices, and patients is what defines success in his eyes. In the countless trainings that he's performed in the past, Dr. Durkin's main goal has remained the same. When focusing on safety and improving patient outcomes, he teaches training participants to seek success rather than avoid failure. This, he says, has made all the difference in the careers of many whom he has trained and mentored over the years. No matter how long an individual has been in the aesthetic space, this rarely seen mentality shift can improve their confidence and abilities and thus the patient's experience and outcomes. I love that. Love that. Physicians focusing on mindset. So good. All right, so you're going to love this interview. Be sure to check out the links below this episode about some of the upcoming trainings at MedSpa Network and enjoy. All right, Dr. Durkin, welcome to the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. I don't know where this conversation is going to go, but I know it's going to be fun.
I think it will be too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So tell our listeners, you have your hands in a lot of places in the aesthetics industry. You're a plastic surgeon. You have the MedSpa Network. Tell me about your path into this industry.
So for me, it started, in medical school. I actually went to medical school originally to be a pediatrician.
Oh, did you?
I did. And,
You'd be a fun pediatrician.
I think so. But so that was my plan. Well, my original background is I got a master's degree in physics, and then I started in that industry for a while, but medicine really was always my interest. So I reapplied to medical school and got in to be a pediatrician. Did my first 2 years, went and did my clinical rotations, and pediatrics wasn't really a great fit for me. And, in their third year, you go through all the major core pediatrics, OB, surgery, family medicine, internal medicine, psychiatry. And I went through half that year, and nothing really grabbed me. I got a little depressed, and because I had no interest really at the time in surgery. And then I did my surgical rotation, and the first day in surgery, that was it.
So you just felt like you had
I found it.
That was, it's similar for me when I went to aesthetic school. I had no idea that the medical world was going to be of interest to me. I actually was, a lot of our listeners know this, but my father passed away from malpractice. And so I was very resistant to anything medical in the world. And I went to aesthetic school. I was really thinking about being in this kind of fluffy day spa environment. And my path brought me 2 years after I had graduated to a medical spa in Maui with Dr. Stelly and Dr. Martin. Started right in the beginning there. They actually put on Maui Derm, if you're familiar with that conference.
I am.
So I really kind of got my education and training through working for them for several years, being a part of Maui Derm for several years, and really just fell in love and found my place in the world of medical aesthetics, derm, all of that kind of stuff.
Oh, no.
It's amazing how it just grabs you.
Yeah, it was a completely emotional decision. My first day in the operating room, that was it. I had never seen anything like that. And the perception was that it was, before I was there, that it was this really disjointed, kind of cold service. But the reality is good surgeons get to know their patients very well. Mm-hmm. And it's a truly intimate process where you can offer a service that is pretty profound. And so then I knew I was going to do surgery, and I'm kind of big and I'm loud. So everybody told me naturally, well, you're an orthopod. You should really do orthopedic surgery. And so I had a good role model, and he said that I should try it. So you get to do your elective. So I go to sign up for my elective, and there was no spots. They had all been filled. And so they told me that I should do plastics, and I fought it. I absolutely fought it.
Why were you fighting it? Did you feel like...
Had no interest, really didn't have an understanding, didn't have experience with it, didn't have exposure to it. But the first day on my plastics rotation, we had to go out of town for that. Mm-hmm. That morning I went to the Children's Hospital, and I did a cleft lip that morning. And then that afternoon we took a travel to an outpatient surgery center, and we did a facelift. And that was absolutely it. That was it. I had completely found it, because for me, I had never seen anything like that. And I saw within one day the entire spectrum of service that I wanted to provide. We took care of a child, and then we took care of, she had to have been in her 60s. And it was just in one day. And
it's amazing the variety. And, my husband was active duty military for almost 21 years. We go to Walter Reed, and there's actually physicians at Walter Reed that does plastic surgery for a lot of the soldiers. They have a training program. Yeah, and it is life changing. And then obviously, plastic surgery for people like me. I had a breast augmentation after I had my kids, and it made me feel so much more confident in myself after nursing 2 babies. And it's like, whatever that means for you to build your confidence and show up in a bigger way in the world. And my surgeon was fantastic, super personable. It is, you build a deeper relationship with them.
There's no question. And that was really either I didn't see it or it was hidden from me. I didn't see it. Mm-hmm. But once I saw it, it was just compelling. And then, my experience initially in plastic surgery was facial. Mm-hmm. And that was it. Like it really changed how I looked at things. I started looking at the face as really its own organ. It has its own embryology. It has its own anatomy, its own physiology. And once I started really deep diving into that, like that passion would just double up over and over and over again. And that's what drives us. And so so I did my training. I did general surgery. I did a 2-year oncology fellowship, because that was, I think, just an incredible opportunity that was given to me. I took that, did my plastics training, and then I went out west to Flagstaff, Arizona. And that was my starter job, and was at a level 1 trauma center. I wanted to contribute, and plus the guy I interviewed with asked me to do a underserved area, and that included the Navajo Nation. So I was out there for 3 years. And then I had interviewed in the Treasure Coast of Vero Beach with Dr. Ferdinand Becker, who was a facial plastics, ear, nose, and throat surgeon. And I really, really liked him, as did my wife. And we didn't think that the timing was right. We went out west, and he called me every 6 months for 3 years.
Persistence.
And God or luck or fate or whatever it was, let us come back. And we've been there ever since.
So tell me, you have a successful surgical practice.
Yes, ma'am.
Your wife is involved in the business. Sounds like she's an incredible woman.
Oh, I married way up, way up.
And you also tell me about MedSpa Network.
So for us, so thank you for saying that about our practice. That's very kind. We have 2 plastic surgeons now, myself, Dr. Jimmy Chim. We have 2 dermatology providers. We have 6 estheticians, 2 massage therapists. Our primary location is 18,000 square feet, and then we have 2 satellites. So we're very happy with that. What spawned really MedSpa Network, and you're actually going to probably know this even better than me, is there is an overwhelming surge of demand relative to your services and mine. Mm-hmm. And there's a spectrum there that exists, and that spectrum is open to all. There's just a real nice opportunity for our fellow humans to improve their self-image on their terms. Mm-hmm. And that will continue to swoon. So as busy as I am right now, most projections say that our market will double in the next 6 to 7 years. Yeah. And as that market doubles, that's going to be demand-based. The supply has to equal it. The reality is we only make about 400 to 500 plastic surgeons a year. Mm. And we make a lot of dermatologists a year, but the reality is there's too much demand for the supply that is created currently by the structure. And that has driven a lot of really good, talented, well-meaning physicians, nurses, estheticians into new arenas that are exciting, but they're also, they can be scary.
Yeah.
Because the fear of surgery is not the fear of a knife. The fear of surgery is a fear of anatomy. Mm-hmm. And if you're an injector and you're doing this the right way, but you don't really understand the anatomy the same way like someone like I do, there will be a fear there. And that fear can hold you back, or it can drive you down a different pathway that you don't want to be. Mm-hmm. The whole goal of MedSpa Network was to relieve that fear and equalize the playing field such that the market can find what it wants.
But through training.
That's
you offer
correct.
Trainings, you have events. Talk to me a little bit about this event that you're having in June, because it's a little bit, you go really all in where you're actually working on cadavers.
Absolutely.
And I think that's such an important thing because, when you're talking about injecting, there's nerves in the face. It's not just, it seems like, Botox is, or any type of neuromodulator or neurotoxin is like this easy, common thing. But if you inject in the wrong place or you do filler in the wrong place, hit a vein, something like that, it can be a really serious, very serious thing. And
on the very, very least, it would be a emotional shock to the person who received it.
Yes.
At the very, very, very least. And sometimes I feel that can be skirted past by surgeons who deal with, both issues, both subtle and gross. Whereas if you have a non-surgical provider, they're going to capture that. Mm-hmm. They might do it more efficiently. And that is important. That's the humanistic component of what we're doing. The other thing is I think you just said it very elegantly. There are more similarities than dissimilarities between surgeons and injectors. Mm-hmm. An injector is going to be altering anatomy, just like I do. And so they should have that same background. But the reality is the overwhelming majority of these men and women are doing this just based on desire and hustle. There's no direct pathway for them to get the training that I received. You could argue I cheated.
Well, but talk to me more about how you're trying to solve this problem, because this event, who are you inviting to this event? What are you teaching at this event? We've touched on the problem that you're trying to solve, but this type of training is obviously very important for, nurses, doctors that are going into the aesthetic side of things.
So what we want to do, we've been traveling. So MedSpa Network is really a two-headed hydra. What we did is we were lucky enough to build industry relationships with a number of different industry partners, Mertz, MTF, Dr. Babor, quite a few, Influx Marketing. All of these great organizations came together and they agreed, this is what we're going to do. We're going to create an opportunity financially. We're going to offer a group where people can sign up. They can receive products at a lower rate. Mm-hmm. And once they reach a certain spend, we will train them for free. Mm. Or you can just vertical and pay for it. If you decide to pay for it because you want to get it early on, you get a massive discount. You can also not be a part of the network and attend. It's completely up to you. The benefits of the MedSpa Network are, number one, is we're on the road. So after next week, I'm going to Jacksonville. We're doing a training up there. And then after that, I am going to Baltimore.
Oh, close
Maryland.
to me.
Very close.
Yeah.
So we have 150 injectors up there. And so we're sold out. And so we're going to go up there. We're going to run a cadaver lab. That's a one-day training. The one thing that we're excited about is we've rented out the Nicholson Center at the University of Central Florida. That's their surgical simulation lab. And we're gonna have up to 300 injectors there. We have 9 faculty members. It's a 2-day course. First day is 50% didactics. We're gonna deep dive everything in anatomy. If you're comfortable with anatomy like me, we're still gonna make you better. If you don't understand what the SMAS does or how the SMAS relates to the retaining ligaments or anything like that, guaranteed you're gonna understand when I'm done. So the first day is going to be 50% lecture, and then after that, we're going to have a 4-hour cadaver lab. We have 9 faculty members. Our decision was made to have 3 plastic surgeons, a CRNA, a physician, and 2 other extenders. They're going to be physician associates, and they're going to have 3 registered nurses, all of whom have significant experience. So the 3 registered, 2 are from the Northeast, 1 is from Las Vegas. And so we're going to be running the cadaver lab that afternoon. There's going to be a dinner that evening. It's obviously not obligated to go. Then Saturday, we're going to come back. We're going to finish didactics on what biomaterial really means. And how do you marry the right patient with the right intervention from just a pure injectable standpoint. And then after that, we're going to do live injections for 6 hours. We're going to do everything on and off label.
Practicing.
Oh, yeah. You get to play.
Oh, I love that you do on and off label also.
Absolutely. So the reality is, and I know you know this just as well as me, and I won't belabor this, there are 2 divergences happening right now, right in front of us. One, regenerative medicine and aesthetic medicine and surgery are becoming one. They just are. That's where the focus is from a research standpoint. That's what the market's going to want. If I can offer you an intervention that lets your body fix yourself, you're going to like that better than if I offer something that's synthetic. That's a no-brainer. The second thing is the future of fillers is not just from the neck up, it's from the neck down. And that's based on the European and the Southeast Asian experience. That is happening. So doing a mini Brazilian, butt lift, we're doing 2 to 3 a month. And the benefit of that is it's non-surgical.
How many syringes do you need for something like that?
So that's a great question. We're going to talk about that. Then we're going to deep dive that very significantly on June 24th.
Okay.
Because there's really 3 major biomaterials. You have calcium hydroxylapatite, which is really our main choice. Then you have poly-L-lactic acid. And then number 3 is something called adipose-derived stem cells, or Renuva. So really, Radius and Renuva are the 2 that we usually hybridize. Mm-hmm. The other thing is not dissimilar to surgery or medical treatment of tumors or medical diseases. When you hybridize, you tend to elevate. And that's the other third frontier. So like we're pretty comfortable and stable with what we can and cannot do in an operating room. And we're very safe, and our outcomes are pretty standardized. And outside of the operating room, if we're doing a neuromodulator or a filler or a laser, we're pretty safe. But when we start to combine those treatments, we start to see transformational results. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing that's coming. That's the new dose response curve. Because when you bring those modalities together, whether it's during a surgery or during an injectable, you elevate as long as you understand the parameters of what you can and cannot do. And once you understand those parameters, this job gets really, really fun. It gets really fun. Tell me,
who is this? Is this nurses? Is this doctors?
Yes.
Do you have to be can you be a novice injector and never?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. If you can go, so if you join MedSpa Network, there's a modular training program, and we'll take you from 0 to hero on your terms, in the comfort of your own home over a few months. If you don't have that kind of time, we'll take somebody that's from 0 to hero in 2 days in Orlando. We do that every 6 months. Or there's opportunities outside of that in different arenas of the country. So we're in California on June 14th. So I have a medical license there, and we'll do live injections out there. We have a medical license in New York. We travel there fairly frequently just because that's a robust market. Mm-hmm. This is obviously, so where we're at today in the beautiful state of Texas, this is a beautiful, beautiful market. Mm-hmm. Your neck of the woods where you practice, it's another one. So we've done 2 trainings up there.
Okay,
both
great.
with MTF. Yeah. So the real impetus for that is these are good people. So there's nothing Machiavellian about somebody having expertise and having experience in traditional medicine and recognizing that my gifts are in a different field. It happened to me. I did an oncology fellowship and I still practice oncology, but the overwhelming majority of my practice now is aesthetics because that makes people happy and I deeply enjoy that.
So when we were talking before this podcast episode, we had a little conversation before, and excuse me, I remember you having such a interesting and beautiful perspective on the role of nurses in the workplace. Talk to me a little bit about that, as where you see nurses, where you see estheticians, where you see other individuals in the aesthetic space and how they can support you as a physician, how they can learn more, all of that.
So if you're lucky in surgery, you get to figure out real fast. It's not about you. It's about the team you create. Mm-hmm. It is. If I walk into an operating room with a team full of people and I understand what they can and cannot do, why they're doing it, we're going to do a better job than if I don't know anybody in the room. Mm-hmm. Those aren't my rules. Those are God's rules.
That's a human connection.
That's
any
right.
industry that you're in.
And you're gonna synergize off each other. You're going to take someone else's energy and add it to your own, then you're going to double down on them. And you're all going to focus on a goal, and that's the beauty of surgery. Same thing happens in the clinic. Absolute same thing happens with injectors, with laser providers, all of that. If you're doing this as a solo, you're going to do fine. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but if you're going to be great, you really have to create a team.
We're seeing a lot more NPs and PAs just going out on their own, starting medical practices, starting med spas.
I think they're doing that not out of as much desire, but out of necessity.
Yeah, I would agree.
I do. I don't think that we have in 3 locations, we have 5 physician associates. And the reality is if they are given the same opportunities that you and I enjoy, what is their reason for doing all of that? They're not doing that necessarily because they want to. They're doing that because they perceive they have to get to where they want to be. Mm-hmm. And the reality is there are more physician associates made than plastic surgeons every year. Same with nurse practitioners. So I think I have a little bit of a unique perspective on this, but I think there's a growing awareness that there's a practicality to it. Mm-hmm. There is going to be a large nursing contingent in the future of aesthetics, period. The market decided that.
I have a good friend of mine who is an orthopedic surgeon. She went to medical school, did 2 fellowships, and she said, you know what, if I could go back, I don't know if I would go to medical school again because I'm 35 getting my first job.
I also hear that.
Yeah.
So now, and can I double down on that too? So, and I know this sounds like a small number, but the estimate is about 12% of patients, this is mainstream medicine, would now prefer to see a nurse.
I think it's because there's more relationship there,
or at least a perception. I would agree with you personally. Yeah. That's going to be variant depending upon the nurse-physician, the nurse-patient relationship. But consider 6 years ago, that number was 0. Mm. That's a tectonic shift.
Well, I think that
it's a tectonic shift, and that's the market.
But in practices, and a lot of derms, they will see patients for 10 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, how is that even possible? No. Where the nurse is the one that's calling. And so you're feeling like you have more of a relationship there, yet the physician is the one that has so much liability.
Yes.
More schooling, it's just more burdensome. And I think that was her point was, I'm 35 getting my first job.
I was 34.
And, like some of my other friends are like already well into their careers and advanced. Mm-hmm. And now I'm starting and I'm not getting paid the same because of insurance companies when you're in traditional medicine, not aesthetic medicine. So there's a lot of factors that go into, I think, partially what you were talking about is the aesthetics industry growing so tremendously. We're seeing a lot of physicians move this way for financial reasons, but, schedule reasons. Another good friend of mine that's a physician, he was an ER doctor for 20 years and said, I have a family. I can't be in the ER. And so he moved into aesthetics.
Yep. So another thing to consider too is, the overwhelming majority, actually, if not 95% of all medical care is actually delivered by nurses. Mm-hmm. We just coordinate it. The only exception to that is the operating room. Mm-hmm. And there, the physician is directly delivering surgical care, which is a form of medical care.
Right.
But if you're an internist and you're working in a hospital, you write orders. The nurse does it. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? So now there is a disconnect between that patient and that physician, because now there's shift work and stuff like that. But the reality is that nurse is going to come in and know that patient's name every day. Mm-hmm. And that patient will remember that nurse probably more than one of the 5 doctors that rotated through his or her care while they were admitted.
So how do you think that's going to change aesthetic medicine and traditional medicine?
I think it pedestalizes people that recognize that medicine should, and at one point was, a relationship industry. Mm-hmm. And we're getting a little bit away from that because you've got the 10-minute appointment. So we have 2 derms in our practice, minimum 25 minutes. Mm-hmm. To find out what their kids' names are. Don't care. Just, we're not here to churn out, we love market share. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to throw away patients, but why would I risk not getting to know somebody when they may or may not be a part of my practice for 20, 30 years? It's like that old saying, I say this a lot. So it was Steve Jobs, I think, that said, we don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. Well, the original, term doctor is to teach. That's what doctor comes from. It comes from doctore. Well, the best teachers I have are my patients, and I can't figure out what they're going to teach me in less than 10 minutes. Yeah. You know what I mean? To your point, and that's happening all over in every sector of what we consider now mainstream medicine. But if you try to use that model in aesthetics with a new patient, you're going to be getting a lot of new patients that don't come back. Mm-hmm. So I think that all of us have that. We went into medicine for some reason. We wanted to be goal-oriented. We wanted to be a positive force, and we wanted to know people. We wanted to have relationships. And you have that opportunity in aesthetics. And it might be shrinking in non-aesthetic or traditional mainstream medicine.
And I would add to that, I believe that relationship is such an important piece, especially after going through this pandemic. People were realizing how connected and how much we needed one another and needed that interaction, right? Yes. When people were isolated for, so long. And from the business standpoint, you said, well, it's not like we want to let go of market share, but when you have those deeper relationships, I would argue any practice that has the deeper relationships has a higher lifetime customer value KPI. You
would argue absolutely correctly. The other thing is, if I could just dovetail on that, because that's, it's a wives' tale, right? To think, well, I got to see so many people. What you just said is 100% correct, but that's harder. It's also more organic.
Yes.
But you get a better long-term return. No ifs, ands, or buts. Again, those are not my rules. They're not your rules. That's the industry. And we were lucky enough to figure that out. That's what that is. I see that completely. The more we spend time with these people and understand their motivations, the better we're going to do. The other wives' tale that I always love hearing is, well, you don't want to do too good a job because then it'll take longer for them to come back. Like if you use a longer lasting, like a bioinductive filler, like if you use something like a Radiesse instead of a HA, it's going to last longer. The concept that somehow reduces your revenue is garbage. Yeah. If you overachieve for a patient, they're going to find a reason to come back.
Yeah, and I would imagine that if you use the wrong filler, especially like in the lips, they're not going to come back.
They're not going to come back. The other thing I would also tell people, and we talk about this, we have a segment in our curriculum called soft skills. So sometimes people will come back and say, hey, something went wrong, the filler didn't work or the neuromodulator didn't work. And you're looking at it and it clearly worked. Yeah. Most of those time, those people are not upset. If they were upset, they probably want to come back. What they want is a little more, but they don't know what.
Yes.
And that's their way of saying, I don't know. And, because they don't want to come in and say, I don't know, because they're usually professional people like you and I.
Yeah. And it's also like, I think the language around the things, how many times have you had a patient come in and say, I just want anti-aging? Well, what does that mean? Right. Does that mean brown spots, red spots, lines, wrinkle, texture, tone?
And once you figure out all of your options, and you truly understand how to create a result, not a procedure, but a result, and you can do it safely and you can reproduce it, this job becomes incredibly fun. Incredibly fun, becomes very meaningful. It becomes intentional. And that's the goal of MedSpa Network. We want to give that to everyone that wants it, because the more we give that away, the better our patients will do and the more our market will grow, and the better they will do, the better we will do. That is purely synergistic. Everybody wins.
Rising tide floats all boats.
That's correct.
So I want to talk to you a little bit more about team, because you're clearly have done a great job of finding support, whether that's in nurses or estheticians or other physicians or administrative, right? You have a lot of help around there. What advice would you give to a nurse or to any type of support staff in whatever these roles may be in finding a good partnership with a physician and where they can be an employee and feel valued and because I think that's a lot of the struggles, that they don't feel that they are being heard or valued in any way.
Oh, completely. So the first thing, so I can talk about that for 6 days. So at any time, please interrupt me. There's a difference between experience and merit. Okay. And physicians are poor at telling the difference. Okay. We just are. So if you are trying to create a new relationship with a physician, experience is helpful, but merit's more important. And they might be related. Mm-hmm. They might not be. Don't assume that everybody thinks they're the same. You want to show people merit. So if I could give an example of that.
Yeah, I would love an example of what you're calling merit.
So I am in aesthetic. I have my own aesthetic plastic surgery center. We don't do anything other than aesthetics. Myself and Dr. Chim, globally 4 days a week, we are working there. Mm-hmm. It is ran by a nurse named Melissa that I cannot live without. Mm-hmm. Can't imagine life without her. She's a neonatology ICU nurse. I met her, and that was it. Absolutely, totally fit.
But it's her personality. It's how she makes you feel supported.
And most importantly,
hire the smile, train the skill.
That's right. So every time she talks to a patient, they feel better. Now, she doesn't see it because she's done it naturally her whole life. Mm-hmm. Like it's like you and I putting on shoes. It's her superpower. Mm-hmm. She doesn't see it. I saw it immediately in the interview. She had zero experience, couldn't spell Botox, had no idea what it was, never been in an operating room. She's magnificent. Can't live life without her. That's merit.
So do you do personality tests or aptitude tests or any of those types of things?
So I don't. I think the concept is sage. I just think the tools are blunt.
I think I would argue it depends on, we've done a lot of different ones, and the military actually uses MBTI, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator.
I think that's the one I took.
Okay.
I took that one. Yeah.
So they use that when they're placing, if you want to be in special forces or you want to be in some like on subs, they will take the test and find out like, what's your personality type? How are you? It's not like one is better than the other in any way. It's Agreed. How you perceive information, how you respond to, like how you're absorbing or intaking, how you get energized. And my husband and I, when he was active duty, we did a marriage course because divorce is very high in the military because of because of the spouse being gone or the active duty service member being gone quite a bit and then reintegrating into the family and all of that. So we took this course and they did the full, like not the 16 personalities test, but like the full, you get this like 70-page guidebook.
Oh no, I didn't take that one.
Okay. Yeah. No. It was my 16 personalities and that one were the same. So it's, you probably know, but I learned from that I hire J's in my company. I'm very much I'm a ESFJ, are my 4 letters. J is very structured. I like lists. I like spreadsheets. Oh, yeah. I'm sure your wife is a J.
Oh, she makes lists. She's the one who taught me to be a list maker. Yes, that's right.
Systems, all of those types of things. And I know in my work environment, everyone in my work environment is a J because that's how we communicate. And so that makes it easier for that individual to thrive in that environment.
I can see that.
You don't plant a rose in the desert, right? It's like you've got to be in a work environment where this individual can truly, because I believe everybody has something beneficial they can give and provide.
Agreed.
They just have to be in the right environment to do that. So I use those tests as a way to try and understand deeper their natural tendencies. But I also believe deeply that I would want to be friends with everybody outside of the workplace. Not that you have to be, but that I could be friends with this person.
The potential has to exist.
Yes.
Yes. Because if you don't have that potential, I feel it's harder to garner trust over
but it's
time.
Such a
and
challenging.
it's a team effort. You know, you have to, the left hand and the right hand, they may not be talking to each other in real time, but the left hand needs to know what the right hand's doing.
I feel like that's such it is a soft skill though, right? Like you're like,
Yes.
I met Melissa and I just felt it. I knew right from the interview.
Right.
How do you teach that to,
So that's hard. We role play.
Okay.
So one of the things we do at our trainings is we'll try to role play. We do, patients like the dissatisfied patient, the difficult patient, so on and so forth. But, a lot of times once you reestablish good rapport, a lot of that stuff disappears. Mm-hmm. Unless there's a true mechanical issue that Stevie Wonder can see, a lot of times it's a misunderstanding. That's what it comes down to. So what's really important there is not proving that you're right. What's really important there is to being able to show, to explain, like this is what we did, this is why, here's what we used, this is the outcome, these are your options moving forward. How can I help? Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems incredibly intuitive.
Yeah.
Very few people do it that way. And I think, and there's a direct correlate between the people that do it that way and their success.
Yeah.
And there's an inverse correlate, the people that say, well, what are you talking about? It's right there. I think you're crazy. You know what I mean? And you get that label, we don't see that at all. There's an information asymmetry that exists between the aesthetic recipient and the aesthetic provider. Mm-hmm. And that's where the soft skills come in. And the better you can
it's
gulch
so
that.
Important. It's so important.
The better you do.
I feel like I've been talking about my husband a lot this episode, but he keeps coming up because when he was in undergrad, he's an engineer, and engineers tend like very objective numbers, data, all of that kind of stuff. And he went to WashU for undergrad, which is a Washington University in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And they have a whole class dedicated to communication and soft skills and even etiquette of, because some of these guys, when we got to MIT, it was like, you know what? Pretty much everyone's on the spectrum here. And not even not saying that in any way. They're brilliant people that can have the ability to change the world if they had the confidence.
I saw the same thing. So I have a master's degree in physics, and they were the smartest guys in Chicago, but they had a hard time ordering dinner.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a limitation because you have somebody that can unlock some new realm.
They're brilliant.
That's right. But how do you actuate it? Yeah. How do you get it from this, not infantile stage, but this pre-form stage and make it a reality?
It's something I'm so interested in other parts of my life. I'm like, gosh, these people are just so like, what is in their brain that they could share with the world and impact humanity in such a positive way?
Oh, sure.
If they only had the ability to believe in themselves and have confidence in themselves and
explain what they see.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a skill that once you learn, you'll never not use.
And that's, I think, ties into also why personal development in general is such an important piece of business.
Agreed.
Of any industry that you're in, but really understanding yourself and communication, because that will take you higher in whatever
Absolutely.
You're doing.
The other thing too, I think that's happening, if I could, what also is happening is so if you're an empath and you're a nursing provider, or you're an esthetician, or you're a physician associate or a CRNA, and the person that's your director is not.
There's a clash.
Yeah. And it's not by design. It's not wanted, but you have different goals to some degree. You have a mutual mission, but the goal or the pathway is probably going to be a little separate.
Yeah.
So, but the reality is the overwhelming majority of patients, in my experience, in oncology and in aesthetics, that relationship matters.
It does.
Because the journey is just as important as that destination, and how that journey is taken will reflect on you your whole life, both as a professional and as a recipient, I think.
We started this conversation. I said, I have no idea where this is going to go, but I know it's going to be good. And I feel like we achieved that. So is there, I want you to say one more time about this event that's happening in June, and then anything else that I didn't ask that you felt called to share to make this episode complete.
Oh, yeah. So we're super excited. So our plan is to do this biannually, once every 6 months. We have good relationships, really all over the country, but regionally we have great resource relationships, with UCF. We're going to be using their simulation center. We're going to have almost 300. We can have up to 300 injectors, 9 faculty. It's a 2-day course. First day is all cadavers. Everybody gets a cadaver. We're going to take apart the human face layer by layer. Everybody's face is an onion, but everybody's onion's different. So we want to understand those nuances, and we want to understand foundational safety and really where the danger zones are. So really the first day is going to really be an enormous deep dive on how to stay safe and know what you're going to get out of a needle in the human face. This course is going to be primarily on fillers. We're not going to be doing toxins. We are going to focus on what we think where the biggest gulch exists. We're going to talk about hyaluronic acids, every single one. We're not training platforms, we train molecules. Okay. We're going to be talking specifically about bioinductive agents, because I firmly believe they are the future. They are absolutely the future. From a patient's perspective, the event is the same. Whether you're injecting an HA or you're injecting something like calcium that's going to build up your collagen for 2 years.
Except for those massage 5 times a day, 5 times.
Yeah.
That hurts.
Yeah. So you got it. With that being said, but the needle is the same.
The needle is the same.
The needle is the same. So when those people go through that process, if they're getting something that's going to benefit their body long term, that's a value add. There's a large segment of the population that wants that. There's a segment that doesn't. But people need to know how to offer that, because if you don't offer that, you lose that entire market. So we're gonna talk about that quite a bit, and that's really so the first day is really going to be anatomy, and the second day is going to be biomaterials. But we're there to talk about molecules, not brand names, because once you understand the science can propel your result, and your result is more important than your brand.
I love that. I think that is really important too, because there are, I'm going to use toxin as an example, but there's people that are raving fans of Botox, and people that are raving fans of Dysport, and people that are raving fans of Xeomin. Yes. And it's all fine. That's right. It's what your practice, what you feel the most connected to, what rep you have the most support from, and the nuance. Yeah. They're all nuanced. So I would respectfully submit that the overwhelming majority of people think that Botox, Xeomin, and Dysport are pretty much the same. I couldn't disagree more. I think they're very nuanced. The more you use them, the more you understand the molecule. You can transcend the brand name, and then you can really target your result. I mean, it's very common in our practice now. We'll blend too, because certain things do certain things better, and that's the fun part. And so really getting to, so we're not going to your point though, we're not going to share that with toxins, but that's going to be in 6 months. This is going to be a filler deep dive. And so the first day is going to be anatomy, cadaver lab. Second day is going to be molecular biomaterials, and we're going to do live injections from the neck up and the neck down. And very everybody gets to play. Well, we will keep all of those links below this episode. Make sure that you check that out if that's something that you are feeling called to learn more about. Dr. Durkin, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. I loved having you here. You're so much fun. Oh, thank you. I'll come back here anytime you'd like. This is fabulous. Very good. Very good. Thank you for having us. All right. We'll catch you on the next episode.